This is The Cannamom Show, a podcast chronicling the inspiring stories of real women in the emerging cannabis industry. Your host, Joyce Gerber, mom, lawyer, political activist, has been speaking with women from coast to coast and around the world who are leaders in the revolution of cannabis and caregiving, continuing on her mission to lift up the stories of the women creating the cannabis industry by sharing their canna stories with you. So go make yourself a cup of tea or roll yourself a joint, sit back, and learn something new about this magical plant on The Cannamom Show with Joyce Gerber.
From the Tip O'Neill Studios in North Cambridge, Massachusetts, it's The Cannamom Show. Now here's your host, Joyce Gerber.
Hey, welcome back to The Cannamom Show, where we continue on our mission of crushing cannabis stigma. I love that our guests are in on it now, Dave. Everyone's like bringing their own props.
Yeah, our guest is holding a bong. I won't reveal, no spoilers here, who the guest is, but she has an impressive-looking bong. It reminds me of a bong that my college roommate Andy and I had, which we called the Enterprise, because it's sort of vaguely recalled the Starship Enterprise. This one does too, sort of.
Yeah, she's got it there, all props, because, you know, this is the Cannamom Show. All right, so it's another beautiful day in New England, but yesterday was actually nice. I took a road trip down to Brockton, your area.
Brockton, it's nice this time of year. Yeah.
Well, I actually went from Wellesley in the morning to Brockton, so I did like a little like Massachusetts extremes yesterday.
You can hit a lot of different socioeconomic classes going from Wellesley. Did you say Wellesley? Wellesley,
yes.
To Brockton, yes.
I was in the Wellesley Country Club too. My friend Marcus Johnson Smith, he's got a new dispensary down in Brockton, Cush Grove, and we're doing a little Mother's Day thing. I'm going to show you the bag, so if you aren't on YouTube, you can't see it, but.
By the way, there's nothing wrong with Brockton. It's the city of champions.
It took a long time to get there, I will say.
Yeah. You gotta go down 94. Me and Adrian go bowling there sometimes. Anyway, yes, we're looking at a lovely. This is a bag.
It is it's a bag. It's a tote, I suppose. It's a tote.
Tote bag. Yep.
I knew it was cool because my 22-year-old daughter wanted one of them. So
yeah, the design is just very vibrant and very cool. Yeah.
So it's the season of Cannamom because it's May, and Mother's Day is on Sunday. It's my birthday on Saturday. I usually get all bushed up together, but if you're in the area, if you're in Cambridge, Cush Grove, they're hanging out. They got cool bags, and they're doing a giveaway of a bag full of stuff that I like, which is cool. So
you said if you're in Cambridge, if you're in Cambridge or Brockton.
Oh, well, actually, I don't know where the giveaway. I did the photo shoot in Brockton, but my dispensary that I go to is in Cambridge. So maybe he's doing it at both locations. I don't know. This is coming out afterwards. Whoever got it, got it.
Okay. Right.
But whatever. It's fun to support Canna Moms, and it was fun to go down to Brockton. I actually grew up in Sharon, so I kind of know the hood.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
All right. Let's see.
Brockton is Sharon's tougher older brother.
I think so. Yeah. All right. So, Dave, do you have any idea how many shows we've actually done? I was going to count them up.
Oh, man.
5 seasons, 40.
So, yeah, we're talking about somewhere between probably 220 and 240 shows, something like that.
Yeah, that's a lot of preserving. So, this is coming up. We're doing a couple more shows for season 5. We end at the end of June. I don't know what's happening next year, but I just, people, there's a lot of stories out there. I think we've really been preserving some interesting history over the past 5 years, 5.5 years of like women who are doing this across the country. A lot of them are still in the industry. Some of them have moved on, but I don't know. It's a nice kind of foundation of the pioneering women that we've established here at the Cannamom Show.
That's a good reminder to our listeners that most of these episodes, if not all of them, are evergreen in the sense that these are people telling stories about their journeys in the cannabis industry, their journeys in cannabis. Sometimes they're heart-wrenching personal journeys. And so I encourage people, if you like this episode you're listening to now, go back and sort of cherry pick and see what you might find interesting. You can start at the beginning if you want, but most podcasts, I don't know, like my music podcast, I tell people don't go to episode 1 because it sucked. The Cannamom episode 1, I seem to remember being pretty good. But
I was video. I went from video to audio only and back to video.
Oh, that was before I was even working with you.
They
right.
just threw me in, whatever. I was working for my company that I was working for, and they just said, go do this. And I said, I've never done this before. And they said, you'll be fine. So here I am.
And you are. Yes.
Here I am 6 years later. All right. So before I jump into today's guest, I want to give another shout out to the event I'll be attending in Orange, Massachusetts on Saturday, June 1st. It is the Ganja Ball and Art Gala. being held at the Revival Wheeler Mansion. Remember last week I said it might be haunted? I don't know.
Mm.
Mhm. It's going to be a night of creativity and fun. There will be dancing, mingling, artwork to admire, just celebrating everything cannabis. And like I said, fancy dress and maybe hats. What could be better? So if you're interested, check it out. I'll have the link in my social media. It's through Hometown Yogi, Brandy Lefsick out in Orange, Massachusetts. She's a yoga teacher. And this will be the first cannabis friendly event at the Revival Wheeler Mansion, which I think is kind of cool.
This is not the haunted house music. Are you scared?
No, I really don't like to be scared, so I'm just gonna think of like friendly ghosts.
Okay. Casper only.
Casper, but this is like totally off topic. But I was reading a story about this little girl who kept telling her parents they thought that the house was haunted because she kept hearing noises. Whatever. It turns out there were honeybees in the wall.
Bees.
Did you see
I heard
that?
that. Yeah. There were like 50,000 bees or something ridiculous.
That poor little girl.
Yeah, she was right. There was a monster in her room. Just very small monsters.
Sometimes you got to listen to your kids. All right.
Yeah.
One more time. Oh, I want to do a culture corner, which I have not done in ages, and then we'll introduce today's guest.
Okay.
The Culture Corner.
I don't know why I find that so funny. Okay, today, Brittany Griner. Remember Brittany Griner, professional basketball player.
Yep.
Phoenix Mercury. You know, she was held in Russia for a drug charge. Quotes, a drug charge.
Yeah, she had like one vape pen, right? Something like that.
Not even. So she has a new book out this week. It's called Coming Home. I've seen her, heard her on all the talk shows. She was featured in the New York Times Magazine this week. It's really just, you know, it's tangentially connected to cannabis, but it is connected to cannabis because, you know, when the quote from the New York Times story said, when she was detained, she was traveling to her $1 million off-season job with the UMMC, a top team in the wildly popular Russian Women's Basketball League, where she had played for 7 years, in part to supplement her $220,000 salary with the Mercury. This is like a whole women issue.
Right.
But her crime was possessing 0.7 grams of a medicinal marijuana oil legally prescribed in the United States that she had forgotten to remove from her bag, end quote.
Unbelievable. Yeah, that story was ugly in so many ways because it was possibly a women's issue, it was possibly a racial issue, and it was a cannabis issue, and just anti-American issue, arguably, right?
Yeah, so she's been talking a lot. Some pretty scary. You know, we talk a lot about the scary things that can happen to like women and moms who get children's services involved with their lives when they find out cannabis is consumed, even like with a doctor's permission. But this is a whole nother level of trauma that, you know, we don't even think about anymore, really. I don't think about it, but there are parts of the world where this is still really true. So people have to be careful when they travel. I think that's part of the story. And, you know, we have to fight to make this just normal. It's ridiculous of what happened to her. And it's kind of sad, but she's back and hopefully she's healing.
Yeah, thank God she's back. Well, maybe, you know, there's some good. Maybe the book will be a bestseller. So that's good.
Yeah, and we
probably
maybe
already is.
and to bring again to light the fact that this woman was traveling to another country to supplement her income for a sport that we pay boys a lot of money to play. Whatever, and she, you know, you can list all the things. Like she's a 2-time Olympic winner. There's all sorts of things I didn't know about her because I'm not actually I'm kind of sports stupid, honestly. I hate to admit it, but I am. But
That's why I'm here. I'm right here.
To
You're
support
okay.
me. I'm like, I do live in Boston, so I have to know about the Red Sox. But besides that, I don't really have to.
And the Patriots. Oh, God. And the Celtics.
I really can't do the Patriots. I could handle the Celtics.
You know, before you get to the guest list, I do have a quick question for you that's sort of on point. Everybody asks me this. If you have gummies that you've bought, or really any cannabis product that you've bought legally at a dispensary in Massachusetts, and you're getting on a plane, should you never bring them? Is it okay to bring them? Do you know?
Different issues. Legally?
Legally, it's I guess
technically it's interstate commerce, I suppose. So you really shouldn't. I don't think. I mean, there's a lot of discussion about this. I think that they have bigger issues to think about than like your pack of gummies that's maybe hidden
right
and stuff. So, you know, I do travel with my cannabis products. I'm sure today's guest does as well. Maybe we want to share some tips. But you know, people
you just try to use
knives and And I don't
Of
know.
course.
Yeah. But if you're going to another country, that's a whole nother
No,
ball of
no,
wax.
yeah, I wouldn't go that far, but
Yeah. But
just
interstate,
simplifying. Yeah.
there's, we have 36 medicinal states now, almost more than half the country is adult use. So, we're heading there and it may be rescheduled and I don't know. So yeah, just, put your gummies in a vitamin jar if you really want to be careful.
There you go. Good advice.
Like, here you go. Legal advice from your not attorney.
This is not legal advice. Well, you have two non-practicing attorneys on this.
Just pack. It's fine. It's fine. Okay. Thanks, Dave.
Useful.
Right.
Thanks.
We're going to introduce today's guest. All right. Today's guest. She is a legend in the Massachusetts cannabis industry. She's the founder and owner of Stem Haverhill, the first female-owned and locally owned cannabis shop in the Massachusetts Merrimack Valley, and one of the first economic empowerment cannabis businesses in all of Massachusetts. She has also become a major influencer in women empowerment, philanthropy, and industry inclusivity. In 2022, she conceived and executed the first Green Goddess Invitational, one of the best cannabis events I've ever attended and that I speak of all the time. And she's here today to talk about what's happening in 2024. Today's guest has also focused a spotlight on the unfair local impact fees here in Massachusetts and supports advocacy for communities disproportionately harmed by the war on drugs. And of course, this busy mom is also a foundational board member of the Northern Essex Community College, and in 2022 helped launch the college's progressive cannabis curriculum. She joined us now from Haverhill, Massachusetts, where she lives with her husband, her daughter, and son, and two big happy hound dogs who I saw. Please welcome to the Canna Mom Show, Caroline Pineau. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. And apologies, my two dogs are sleeping here. So if you hear those hound dogs snoring in the background, you know what the noise is.
You're welcome. Well, we've had some funny dog stories back in the day. Like sometimes people have headphones on, they can't hear their dog is barking in the back.
That's always my biggest fear when I work from home is that the dogs will see a turkey or something in the backyard and they get very vocal.
It's just life, people. We all know that now that we're on Zoom. All right. Let's just start about. All right, you got a lot of stuff planned for the Massachusetts community, which we're going to talk about. But I don't know. I would start with you. Tell me about STEM, the STEM dispensary. Why did you want to start a dispensary? And I don't know, what makes you so special up there in Haverhill, Massachusetts?
Well, thank you for asking. I grew up in Maine. I have been an artist and, a lover of community my whole life. Went to school in South Carolina, then thought I wanted to be a sports broadcaster on the sidelines of the NFL and quickly
Oh, so
pivoted.
you know a lot about sports. I
quickly
feel like
pivoted-
horrified.
Yeah. And then I worked in the sports industry on the marketing side. But really quickly, early on in my career, I just felt a strong sense of connection to my kind of creative identity and also a charge for kind of wanting to forge that path myself. So at 22, I quit my corporate sports job and opened my own yoga studio, which I ran for nearly a decade
Okay.
in the city of Haverhill.
And why'd you pick Haverhill?
I picked Haverhill because the love of my life had recently moved here. He grew up in the Merrimack Valley, and Haverhill is a great blossoming community that, at the time was very affordable, to settle down and kind of.
Actually, so not everyone's from Massachusetts. So again, Massachusetts, it's a big state. We got a lot of different regions. Haverhill is a small city. It was an old mill town, I think, maybe kind of
An
like
old mill town, and
Yeah.
actually, there's a lot of history in the STEM building that we're in, which my husband and I are lucky enough to own now. So we just are gearing up to do a whole redevelopment project on this 1890s mill building right on the Merrimack River, which is one of the most endangered rivers in the country, and is a real local and federal problem that needs to be addressed. But these mill cities were bustling in the day and took a real turn when that industry started to fade and the technology era came on. And so there's been a dedicated effort locally, statewide, and nationally to economically revitalize these mill cities. So the building we are in, it used to be an old shoe factory.
And I
We
gotta say, so it's fabulous. So you've been open for a while, and I often talk about when they started to first put these dispensaries in, they kind of hid them. They didn't want them near any children, and they didn't want them near people, really. And you are right. You're the first dispensary I went to that is right smack dab in the middle of you're just walking down the street, and there's your dispensary. So yeah, how did you get that space, and how did the community respond to you? And you're like, hey, we're bringing a dispensary in. And what
The
year?
res the response was not great when
Yeah.
I told them that I was bringing a dispensary and that I had purchased the building with the help of my parents' investment in our project.
Yeah.
Purchased the building, and they were surprised that it was downtown, and actually there was a very strong effort by municipal officials to not allow cannabis
Oh, really?
commerce in the downtown zone. But what I think was ultimately, allowed us to open our doors in that location was the community saying, we support you. We'll
Nice.
come to the meetings and tell the counselors it's okay to have cannabis amongst the 11 different bars that are downtown. And that actually cannabis is probably a safer
Mhm.
route than maybe going into a bar and buying a drink or two. I know in our busy downtown, there's been accidents from people going into the restaurants, drinking too much, and then crashing their cars into storefronts. So we made a strong, advocacy push as to why cannabis should be allowed in the downtown. People should be able to walk from
Yeah.
their home to go purchase cannabis. A lot of people don't have cars, and we do have a fair amount of people that live in the inner city part of Haverhill.
And it's an industrial kind of community, so there are places to walk, which is really great. And you're right
Yeah,
there.
and it's been it's
Yeah.
what we've found is it's actually been really fun to be downtown. We get to team up with all these really cool, friendly local businesses, and we have a really neat downtown
And
business.
you're very fluent. Like, come back to that kind of part. So I always talk about how dispensaries are actually really good neighbors, and you're a really good example of this. So you do a lot of philanthropic work in your community. You kind of came in. That's almost the mission of what you're doing down there. So before we get into like the events you're doing and all the stuff that you're planning, like what is it that drives you to do? I mean, not every dispensary has that mission, but what is it that's driving you to have that mission and really connect to your community the way you do?
Yeah, I just think that's the way that I personally am wired, but also wired to run my business. And I also think it's incumbent upon all cannabis operators to, look away from the dollars and cents of their business for a moment as to what we are doing here together. Excuse me, my phone is ringing.
I've been
What
interviewed people.
But we get to wake up and do this work every day. So
Right.
I want my work to feel like it's making a difference because that feels really good to me. Um, Let me shut this phone off. I'm so
Okay.
sorry.
That's fine. No dogs, just
I'm on a podcast. Can I call you right back? Sorry. Thank you. She'll
it's
keep calling me until I pick up.
there's something wrong? Okay,
I
sorry.
have a really wonderful community that checks in on me all the time, and I'm really
Obviously,
grateful.
right there. There it
I'm
happened.
really grateful she saw that I denied her first call. But no, I really feel a deep sense of commitment to my community. I also got to know the community over the decade in which I was practicing and teaching yoga in this community. And it's very cool to see my friend now owns and operates the studio that I started 15
Right.
years ago, and it's 5 doors up from STEM. So there's a real synergistic relationship.
I mean, you're creating, I say this a lot about the women in cannabis. You're creating the world that you want to see. I mean, you really are doing it, and you're doing it like kind of in a different way than people say you're supposed to do it. So
Oh, thank
going to
you.
that, going back to like the stuff you've done. Let's talk about before we get to what you're doing coming up. Tell us about the Green Goddess Invitational. Why and how did that start? I mean, it's an amazing event. You do lots of like events. There's you supporting other communities. People come in from all over the place. So just kind of talk about the origins and like what that is.
Yeah, the origin was just idea that I had after going and playing golf with some women, golf being a newer sport to me. That was the genesis of the concept. And it was called a 9 and wine. And I said, why couldn't we recreate this for cannabis?
Oh, so you actually went to an event. There was a
Yeah, it
alcohol
was a
event.
it was
Oh,
like a Chamber of Commerce 9 and Wine for
oh,
Women for Breast
interesting.
Cancer Awareness Month.
Okay.
And I went there and we had such a good time. We were laughing. We all dressed up in pink in support of breast cancer awareness. And it got the wheels spinning for me. We could redo this with cannabis as the concept on a bigger scale and shine focus and advocacy on our community, what we're doing as cannabis operators, entrepreneurs, people with a lot of ideas that want to confront systemic change
Right.
and align with nonprofits that would really allow us to accomplish that. So that was the genesis of the Green
And it's
Goddess
at and
Invitational.
it's at a really nice. It's at a country club, so it's at like you drive up. It's
Yeah,
like a
and
private club.
so
It's lovely. It's like the kind of event I like because I talk about how I don't want to be inside. I don't like it to be smoky. I don't like loud music. I don't like to be up at night. You know, so your event is perfect for me.
yeah, so the first event we had 250 people and we had 40 women golfers that participated in the tournament. Last year we had 80 women golfers. So our
Nice.
goal for this year is 150 women golfers. If you know of
Wow.
any women golfers or aspiring golfers, more importantly, that would like to join us, Joyce, just send them my way. And the event attracted over 500 people in the cannabis industry and really turned into an incredible B2B private event.
Yeah.
So we are so blessed to work with the Renaissance Golf Course in Haverhill. It is a gorgeous private golf course that has really leaned in from the beginning of our business and said, you're welcome here.
Right.
And yes, we will help you run a phenomenal women's tournament. And so I just want to give props to the Renaissance. But also it's an opportunity for us to work with like-minded brands and fellow operators in the industry collaboratively on something that's fun and meaningful, but then also is a engine driver for our businesses.
Right.
So showing up to a golf course as women where men traditionally show up and do business, we've got to not only learn the game, we have got to show up in those spaces and be part of those conversations. We don't want to be left out of those conversations anymore. So I think that's one of the things that has come out of Green Goddess, but the grander thing that has come out of Green Goddess is we've realized there's a community hungry for these types of events. And so now we've added 4 flagship events for 2024.
So this is the season of the goddesses. Is this, what are you calling it?
It is the season of the goddesses. It is
Yeah.
the seasons of goddesses.
Oh, seasons of goddesses. Okay.
Yeah, so it'll be the Green Goddess Invitational will now encompass 4 flagship events, with our first one kicking off next Monday. So by the time this airs, we will have gotten through that, but I'm in the
And you'll hear all about it. I'll tell you about it.
yeah, we're in the final execution phase of that. And I am so excited to see all of these creative brands in support of the Parabola Center, which is our nonprofit partner for the day. And I can happy to share a little bit more about their work.
Showing talk about that, but absolutely. Yeah.
Showing up in solidarity for an incredible nonprofit that fights tirelessly for sound drug policy in your local community level, state level, and now federally, nationally, fighting for equity in the cannabis space. So I've been so excited to be able to get to work collaboratively with Shalene Title, our former commissioner, and Lori Lucian is an incredible educator that is one of the founders of Parabola, and Chanel Lindsay. So kudos to the work those women are doing, and we hope to do them justice with this Power of Flower event. There will feature 150 women from across the industry that are going to really come together for a day of nourishment. I think a lot of times as moms and entrepreneurs and women with running in a million different directions, in some cases running multiple brands, and the self-care piece gets lost often. And I think it's important to say, you know what, we can come together for an industry event that is centered around self-care. And in joining together and refueling our cups, we can also pay it forward to 3 women that are totally rocking it and fighting for us all of the time.
Look at you. Okay. So I do a podcast in my daughter's bedroom, but this is like what I dream of, like the idea that whatever, there's a world being built by women who see it differently. Men are happy to join us, whatever. But the idea that we're going to fit into a world that doesn't, even the golfing, that we're really going to fit into a world that's been established for a really long time and we don't really get the rules and they don't see us anyways. Like, I just talked to Megan Dobro from Sativa Lab.
I love her. Megan's so
But
cool.
we have this joke. I mean, it's not a joke, but like I saw her at NECAN. Like she owns this business. She started it. She was standing there at the booth talking to me.
Badass.
But the guy walked over and said, "Does anyone know anything about this?" Or, and it's this idea. And she says on the show, she shared that it happens to her over. It still happens to her. They'll talk to the guy she's standing next to, or whatever it is. I don't know why men can't see us. I don't know what's in their brains. But you're doing this thing by creating a world, a network, and Megan's doing it too, and Peyton Schubrick, and like the women in Massachusetts that I've met across the past 5 years. I'm really proud of. I'm so proud of all of you.
Oh, thank you. Well, we're proud to know you because you fight fearlessly for women and have fought your whole career fearlessly for women. So thank you for highlighting women and doing it so in such a fun manner. I love
No,
working with
it's good.
Panama.
And we the only time we actually ever see each other is like midnight in Las Vegas and
Yeah, I ran into Joyce at the MJ's at MJ BizCon, and then down in DC, scurrying around Capitol Hill
yeah,
lobby.
let's actually talk about policy work. We can we
Sure.
have some time. All right. So we saw each other at lobby day. I've talked about this a bit. We actually sat down with Catherine Clark's general counsel, I think. I forget her title, to talk about some of the issues. We are now at the point where they are now talking about going, it will go down to 3. I don't know what's going to happen next, but we want more. So I don't know. Do you want to talk a little bit about maybe what you're doing with Last Prisoners Project, or what you think? Maybe step back. Maybe what do you think of this first move? And then I don't know. What do you think we should be doing next?
Yeah, I think like so many people, there's a lackluster response to the
Yeah.
news. Obviously, it would be great to have some business eased restrictions,
Hmm.
but I think this is really just like a temporary uh, stall point, and that for full liberation and freedom of this plant, and for people wrongfully incarcerated and their lives imploded, that full decriminalization of the plant is necessary, and
Hmm.
full deregulation is imperative. So I went in support to DC. I learned about what the Last Prisoner Project was doing through my work with the Parabola Center,
Hmm.
and just really felt like I wanted to go be a part of that. And I don't know about you, Joyce, but I was so happy that I did
Hmm.
that. And I think one thing that I continually strive to do is just to keep educating myself.
Hmm.
And I keep learning more and more that I haven't known.
Right.
And I just want to share that with as many people that I can, and also remain committed to helping in whatever ways I can, or using my platform or the work that we do through STEM to highlight the work that still needs to be done. How did you feel about the news?
It just so I believe Chanel and Shailene and Laura, I believe that they know more than I do, so they're all concerned about going to 3 and getting stuck there. I've heard some of the actually, and I don't really understand how the federal policy works, but it's slow. And it's a lot of minutia. And when this actually happens, what will it actually mean? Will pharmaceuticals take it on? I know the businesses, they're excited about all that. Scientists are really excited that it'll be easier to research. I know it all comes down to the policy stuff, which, you
And I
like
think
and the rules.
that,
Yeah.
like anything, I don't think we can really fully respond to the leaked news without understanding that it's going to take time
Yeah.
for the clarity around this announcement to actually, reveal itself of what this will mean. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think there's reason to be concerned, and all the more reason to keep fighting for um, this to be fully,
Yeah.
taken off the
Yeah.
schedule
And
list.
the policy way to that, or the way it's going to happen, is if it goes down to 3, and then they have to push the legislation. I mean, that's the next step, is because I do have lots of good, but that's what we're down there advocating for, the different bills that were sort of presented by the Senate and the House to make this a normal thing that we can use to clean the earth, grow products, heal ourselves. There's a lot of stuff it can do. Um, but it's also about money, because it is a business. So I know you
Yes.
talk about this a lot. We don't have to go too much into it, but the local impact fees here in Massachusetts, it's all
Yes.
part of the host agreement. I talk about it as extortion from that. I had other lawyer friends back when they first started having these. They said they would never have another business sign any of these agreements, but there's no way to get around it. So they have to do it. And you're a business who's fighting back on your community and you're sort of in the middle of it. So where are you now? What do you think is going to happen next? And you don't have to get too much into it if it makes you sad.
It
But-
doesn't make me sad at
No?
all. Oh, it's unfortunate that the city of Haverhill has taken the stance that there has been $3.8 million
Actually,
in
let's just go back. Let's just start with
in-
your story. Like, just how much, what is the actual specifics? What are you fighting on? Because I talk kind of in
Yeah,
general. Oh, it's a
so-
fee, and it goes to the towns and communities to heal all the terrible, horrible things that are going to happen. But no terrible, horrible things are happening. But they're not telling you where the money is, and you're not getting it back. So some communities
Yes.
are, some communities aren't. Okay.
So from the beginning, I sat across from the mayor at the time to negotiate my host community agreement, which I needed in order to open in Haverhill, and pointed out to him that if I were to sign that they are eligible for up to 3% of impact fees, that those would need to be reasonably related to my establishment per state law. He said, let's cross that bridge when we get to it. So here we are on the bridge now, because when I requested of the city what those expenses, alleged expenses actually were, they not only did not provide them, but when I took legal action because they didn't provide that information, they then fabricated documentation, taking pre-existing budgetary items, for instance, maybe some more police salaries to come on board, some more fire salaries to come on board, vape detectors in the schools. Again, the law says that these fees must be reasonably related to the operator, not to cannabis legalization as some prohibitionists, politicians believe it to be. So I do believe that the law is on my side. Most cities and towns across the Commonwealth are now refunding the fees or have stopped collecting the fees, publicly recognizing statewide, some of the really wonderful mayors across the state are stepping up and showing leadership on this issue and saying, listen, there's no fees. Cannabis operators are upstanding citizens in our community. We thank them. We're happy to host them. And they already have enough red tape in front of them. We are not going to make this more difficult for our operators. My host community, unfortunately, which is a sad part, has taken the opposite approach and is continuing to double down that they are owed this money. And interestingly, I'm the only operator in Haverhill out of 4 cannabis operators, the only locally owned dispensary that has paid the fees.
Get out. Seriously?
Seriously.
That's just a weird. So where are you in the? So you had a
So we
summary
are currently
judgment. Where are you? Where are you in the
We
legal
are
process?
currently 3 months out of our motion for summary judgment and still awaiting a ruling from the judge. As you know, that is a bit of a time to be waiting on a ruling. So I see it as the judge is really taking his time. This is a really nuanced case, and cities and towns across the Commonwealth have taken advantage of a gray area in the law. The gray area still is clear that those fees be reasonably related to my dispensary. So I do think that because I filed litigation when I did, that my rights will be preserved and that I will eventually prevail in this lawsuit. And I do think that the court will rule in our favor that the city of Haverhill acted improperly when collecting these fees, and their failure to return these fees, particularly when I've pointed out to them on multiple occasions that I know and they know that I'm the only operator that has actually paid the fees to
So
begin
does
with.
that make any God, that's so strange. I'm just trying to think of it from a legal perspective. Does that make any impact in terms of the hearing? Are you allowed to tell? Does the judge? Do they know that no other communities have paid these fees? You're the only one who's been collected on. That's like
That I can't talk about so much.
okay. All right, that's wild. All right, I did not know that part. All right, so you're in the middle of it, but you still like again, going back to the beginning. She's a really, really good community member. She is purchasing property and upgrading it in her community. She's concerned about the river. She she takes care of her neighbors. She does events every day, I mean every year, to support all sorts of people. And the city is still acting like this. That's really wild. That's an
So if
interesting
anyone is
stance to take.
interested in learning more about this, Joyce,
Yeah.
there was a really well done article by Cassie McGrath in the Boston Business Journal
Okay.
last week.
Okay.
And it's titled Reefer Refunds, and you can also look it up online. And she did a pretty decent feature on our legal case, and my words for the city of Haverhill, which is treat us like any other business, and most certainly treat us like every other cannabis business. We're the only ones that have paid, and because we're the only ones in litigation, I just think it's astounding.
I agree with you. Well, we'll put a link to that in the show notes. Just
Oh, cool. Thanks.
that's an interesting little like, and Dave used to work for our Lawyers Weekly, so he's a lawyer guy too. So that's just an
Oh,
interesting like way the court's working with this.
I
I don't
feel
know.
like a lawyer now.
Yeah, if you sound like a lawyer now, see, just like one more degree. All right. um, all right. So we got rescheduled, descheduled. So moving forward, I know the host agreement obviously it's a big one. Getting people out of jail. Are there any other specific things that you're thinking about in terms of like cannabis work or even your yoga work or like I don't know stuff that you want to think about for the next year? That's mom work. I don't know.
Well, so it's interesting because I feel like the mom season of my life and the work season of my life is synonymous. So
That's
it's
true.
I get very inspired by my children and being around them. And I think their joy reaffirms that I'm on my right path. So I think that's been excited because you never know how someone's going to respond when they find out you're a cannabis entrepreneur. I think most people nowadays are like pretty in support of this.
Yeah. So let's go back. Let's go to your kids. So your kids they're little, right? 5, 2,
Yeah,
how
I
old
have
are they?
a 3-year-old
Oh,
and a
3.
6-year-old,
Okay.
soon to be 7 and 4.
Yeah.
And I actually went into my 3-year-old's Montessori school last week, and we did a miniature kids version of The Power of Flower. And I'm going into my daughter's first grade class this Friday in Haverhill to do a floral arranging workshop with her classmates.
All right. So you're right. So you started the dispensary. Were your kids born yet? How old?
I was 9 months pregnant when we opened the doors of STEM.
Wow. Wow. Okay. So cause I was pregnant in law school. So I always say, I proved that I took the bar and passed the first time while also creating a person inside of me, proving that my brain and my uterus can work at the same time. So you did the same thing. Good for you.
Yeah, it was well, I didn't plan that
Neither
to
did
time
I.
up like that, but
Yeah.
because of the delays for COVID,
Yeah.
and just the general licensing process, which was laborious and
Oh,
very
yes,
long,
people. So actually,
it
when did your journey actually start? When was your first, when did,
So we were granted an economic empowerment license in 2018,
okay.
being that we are from a community, had roots in a community that has been disproportionately harmed by the war on drugs,
Hmm.
and our endeavor to kind of channel that same community yoga studio mentality
Yep.
into a community cannabis, a place where people can come in and feel safe shopping in their
Right.
own
Exactly.
community for a product that everyone has the right to choose for whatever health or wellness reason they deem fit.
Hmm.
Um, so I think that was the why we started, and we haven't looked back. We opened our doors
But and then it just took a long time. So like 2018, and then when was your
we
daughter
opened
born?
in 2020, and we're about to celebrate
Okay.
um, on the 30th of May our 4th year in business.
So your son's only known can like that's just as
He's
well.
only known cannabis. And for that matter, my daughter, she vaguely remembers she was about 2.5, but she would give me a kiss when I would be on my way to the zoning appeals meetings. And I had to fight tooth and nail for that downtown location. I was out at every city council meeting. I was talking to every city councilor. I was meeting with every business owner. I was not settling for anything but my downtown location.
That's how
Um,
ladies do this. So let's talk about your family. All right. So your kids were not in the pricks you got necessarily when you were starting, but what did your family think of this when you were just starting? Is your husband part of the whole business? Like how does everybody connect to this? And were they like, oh my God, what
yeah.
is she doing? Or were they like, yes, this is a great idea?
I think initially there was maybe some surprise on from my dad really was like a driving factor in us pursuing the opportunity that,
Okay.
when we presented that to him. And my dad had, I grew up, my dad was an entrepreneur. He owned his own company in
Mm.
Seacoast, Maine. And I just watched him work tirelessly for our family, and always felt compelled to pursue my own passions
Mm.
the way that he did. And so when we got the opportunity to chase a license, he and my mom were all in, and helped us, get started.
So they were, and so what was their relationship with cannabis when you were pursuing all this? Did they like it? They scared of it? Did they use it? Were they like,
I think my mom was probably scared,
okay,
but
my mother, okay,
supportive, but like a little, uneducated on
New
cannabis.
England. It's like a New England. Yeah, like what did we know? We knew nothing.
And my dad was all about it. He was
Oh,
like,
okay.
he was so psyched. And I think it's been really neat to work alongside my parents to launch the business, and to grow the business, because it's constantly evolving and we're always facing new challenges, and that can burn some people out, but for me it's like thrilling, and
Oh, you got a lot of. She's got a lot of energy, people. When
I'm
I saw
gripped
her,
on
like
to the adrenaline of it. I'm hooked.
she's
So,
she's good at midnight in Vegas. Like that is her prime time. So
oh,
she's got,
I don't know about that. I go to bed at 8 o'clock every night. So
but she
Vegas,
can do.
I can show
She can
up
fake
and
it. She can
and
do
make
it.
it happen. I
She
can
can
fake
make
it
it
till you make
happen.
it in Vegas.
But
Yeah.
normally she has children at home. But if she needs to, she could do it and show people that she's all about that because that's what women do.
Yeah,
That's
but
women.
this morning, me and my daughter were up at 5:30. She had to finish her homework, and I
Yeah.
had my laptop next to her finishing my work. And they see mom and dad work really hard. My husband left his 9 to 5 career in Boston once we opened the dispensary, and
Okay.
he runs the day-to-day operation. I run really the business development.
Oh, actually, I don't want to come back to. I want your kids. Okay, so you're the canon. I mean, you're a real canon mom. You're out there, and you're like, again. So I didn't have this epiphany till my kids were older. It wasn't a big deal. No one knew. But you're a mom who's really in it. So what's happening to the moms? Are people talking to you? Do the PTA curious about it? Like, what is the reaction you're getting? And
Oh,
yeah,
I think because I knew so many people in the community before from
yeah.
through the yoga studio, and these are our teachers. These are our firefighters.
Oh, nice. Okay, okay.
These are our friends. So everyone's been so supportive.
That's
Everyone
good.
wants to talk about cannabis with me and Adam. They want to know what they should try first,
Yep.
if they, how they can sleep better. So
Uh-huh.
honestly, no one has been inappropriate yet. But
Okay. I know, but
I hear that it gets interesting as your kids get a little bit older. I still have really young kids, and I'm in family circles with moms and parents that are very supportive of what we do. We are in the Montessori
yeah. But you're also
program.
breaking. You're a part of this generation. You're the generation breaking the stigma. It's just a story. Like it's really just a story that was told to us that was so negative, and it created a criminalization, and then they put it on. Again, alcohol and tobacco are not on the Controlled Substance Act, people. It's a
So
story.
it's interesting because I actually think that despite the political conservatism of Haverhill, there is a progressive view on cannabis, at least now. I think people are very comfortable with it. And the Montessori school, for instance, they take the kids ranging from 2.9 years of age to 6 years of age, and they walk down past our store
Oh,
and say, "Look, everybody, my kids included. My kids are holding on to the little
yeah, I
rope
love that.
bottle." And they say, "That's Bodie and Charlie's mommy and daddy's plant shop. That's their shop."
That's
And the kids go, "Yeah."
okay.
And then they walk on and they see the barber shop and they see the diner. And so it's interesting because I think my kids are growing up and they're not probably going to understand the stigma, and that's great.
It's great.
But it's interesting because I'm sure they will grow up with friends that maybe have not had that transparency from their parents, and maybe will still have the stigma. So
But like, okay, so women my age and older, we like don't even know where the shame comes from. And I still own a little bit of that. Like when I go to parties, family parties, and I smoke out, I usually consume outside and come back in, and then someone will sniff me, and I still feel a little shame about it. But I do this every day. So those kids won't even have any shame. They won't know, they were never the shame was never given to them. So I think that's how you change the story, because there shouldn't be any shame. It's just a
And they
weird
know
thing.
they know and respect that it's our medicine.
Right.
They help us grow it. They help us trim our own plants. We educate them. They know not to touch any gummy bag in our home
Hmm.
ever, and they
Hmm.
tell all their friends not to touch any gummy
That's
at
actually, that's
in our
interesting.
home.
That's probably smart. I do think the gummy candy thing is a little confusing. So yeah,
It absolutely,
yeah,
and not for my children, but because they've
yeah,
only learned the difference. They've learned it as a difference. That's my gummy, and
yeah,
they'll actually say that's I can have those gummies because those are mine,
yeah,
right? And they always check first, and
yeah.
which I think is really responsible for
You
a
could you could teach children anything. They're pretty malleable.
yeah, and they roll with it, and
Yeah,
yeah, it's pretty funny. They ask a lot of questions. We answer in very honest
yeah. Do you
ways,
do
and
do you have any, do you have any of the children's books? Do you have any of those in your
we have a
home?
bunch of the children's books,
Yeah,
and I read them to them
yeah.
all the time. And yeah, Charlie hates the smell of cannabis, so she, if we're out in our backyard and she just stays away, she goes and plays on her swing set, and it's just no big deal.
That is so funny. Okay, so I really do think this is happening. This next generation, they don't care. When they're teenagers, they'll know all about it. They won't really want to use it unless they're already using it. Again, we talk about children using it, CBD products and things like that, just for pain or sleep or whatever. And then some children actually do need something that has THC, because we are happy to give our kids
Absolutely.
pharmaceuticals, but we still have this weird
Absolutely.
shame about THC and
I mean,
whatever.
teenagers are
Yeah,
being prescribed the most atrocious
right.
pharmaceuticals, and it's poisoning their bodies, their minds. It's over medicating. And if I knew, what I know now about cannabis, I probably would have sought out my medical card at 14 years old.
Yeah. And,
So I think that's a conversation that needs to be had, and that I will certainly have with my children and be aware of, because I do think that that the right kids can benefit from CBD and some THC.
again, you're right. So my kids' generation, my kids are 25 and 22. You are expected to medicate them. Like it was a strange time in history, I think. So I think my children they both found cannabis before I had my awakening. Again, I didn't understand what it was. And then when I kind of started to understand like really how cannabis works, they asked me to talk to their parents, but I didn't quite feel comfortable when I first started learning about it, because I didn't have that conversation with my own kids. Anyways, but now I get it. Like I understand why, kids they're self-medicating in a way that if you don't understand what cannabis is, I can see how you'd be scared, but we're not scared about giving them pharmaceuticals. So that's a whole discussion of like what is a medication, what is medicine, what is this that we talk about that's so dangerous, and why is it on the Controlled Substance Act, which we're going to get it off, right?
Yes. Have you
um,
seen the I want to say it was Dr. Peter Grinspoon that recently put out a publication on cannabis and pregnancy, or a viewpoint on it. I'll have to find it and share it with you. But it was
we do
really
talk about this a lot. I mean, because I talk about Kara's situation, Kara Crab. I did a panel with her last week, and we're talking about like mother ideas. Women in the cannabis industry are coming up with unique ideas for things that aren't necessarily out there, like the CBD creams that you can use on babies, or
Mhm.
some things that we don't necessarily talk about in the industry. But we did talk about there's no data because medical professionals think it's a controlled substance. One, it has no medicinal benefits, and then they report you if you're using it. So if you are using it, you can't tell your doctor, and then they can't really do tests to see if your kids are okay. It's like a weird cycle of like misinformation. So if we can get some better information, like Dr. Grinspoon, yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's like horrible as a woman that's maybe nervous going into birth, and
Mm-hmm.
disclose and uses cannabis to cope with that, which I think is a beautiful choice personally. And then if you disclose that to your doctor, to potentially face ramifications on the flip side, and I've heard personal stories of
Oh
this
yeah.
happening,
Oh yeah.
unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, I just think it's so upsetting that, but we're battling a lot of other issues with
But it
women's
doesn't,
rights
to
in
me.
general.
Yeah, like I say, until the Supreme Court says we're not human, that's like a whole. It's not, sadly not a joke, but
Yeah.
I just This seems like an issue in Massachusetts that could be fixed. This is like hospital by hospital. Women who should not be reported to children's services for using cannabis if they have medical approval. And the idea that it's still happening means that we can't test these children and we can't figure this out. So I know Brigham and Women's doesn't test unless there's a real, because it's harm. What they think, if they think that your child, if you're really endangering your child, they have to report you. But we don't have any flip side data to say they aren't, so they can believe what they want. So, Brigham and Women's doesn't test now. I think MGH doesn't test anymore. I think Dr. Grinspoon said that the other day. But that's 2 hospitals.
Yeah, and I believe Anna Jakes is through the Brigham and Women's system.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I was not tested. I was asked, and I did not disclose.
But if you're a medical card holder, isn't it on your record?
Well, I was not at the time.
Okay.
Yeah, I was not a medical because I had already opened STEM. I didn't need to be a medical card holder anymore.
But that is the other issue. So I know in Arizona, the state of Arizona, they had a lawsuit. So I don't really understand. And I couldn't get the woman on the show. I was trying, but just to talk about what actually happened. And now, if you're working with a medical professional, and unless there's another concern about child endangerment, they cannot report you. It seems like a really simple solution. Who wants to be reported anyways? And Children's Services doesn't want to waste their time on that.
No.
Good lordy, Lord, people. All right. Oh my God, we're so much out of time. All right. Are you doing anything special for Mother's Day?
I am getting prepared for the Power of Flower event on Monday.
All right, so let's go all back
because
to that.
when I scheduled the Power of Flower, I failed to recognize that it's the day after Mother's Day. So I will be celebrating my Mother's Day on the flip side of the Power of Flower.
Okay, so I know it's going to already happen, but just a little bit more to say again when it's going to be, where it's going to be, and then what the next event is if people want to connect with you and want to find out how to help support you, because this is it. This is what I talk about, people. Women, supporting women, doing events, and just trying to create an industry that looks a little bit different than what everything else looks like.
Yeah, so this first event, 150 people will gather at Willow Springs Vineyard on Monday in support of the Parabola Center and in support of women empowerment. This is our Educate event. So educating ourselves on self-care routines, educating our community on what we are doing in this industry as operators, and having the Parabola Center educate us on all the work that they are doing. So this is the Educate season, the Educate event. We're so excited. There's going to be an on-site med spa that's going to be giving vitamin B12 shots. We're going to have luxurious food. We are going to have an amazing dessert bar provided by a local eatery in town with just incredible cuisine. There will be great conversation, floral arranging, homemade bath salt bar, just lots of things to kind of roll up your sleeves, have a day with your friends and colleagues in the industry to do business, but to also recharge and to educate ourselves, and so that we can, as women, go forth and educate our communities.
Amen. And this is how we do business in cannabis. And we're going to have sun. We are going to have sun.
Yes, it's supposed to rain. I haven't even looked at the forecast.
I don't know. I play tennis outside, so
I'm not even going to look.
I'm obsessed with the weather since I started playing tennis outside. That's how I am.
Okay, I love playing tennis. When are we going to play tennis?
Oh, we'll set a date after this. All right.
Okay.
That's why I was in Wellesley at the Wellesley Country Club playing tennis. So, all right. Thank you, Caroline. If people want to connect with you, visit STEM, what is the best way to reach you and find your beautiful dispensary?
Yes. So we are on Instagram at stemhaverhill.com or at stemhaverhill or at lit by STEM. If you want to follow along the work we're doing for Green Goddess Invitational, that would be at Green Goddess Invitational. You can send us a DM and I will get right back to you.
Excellent. Yay. Thank you for joining us. All right. So that is another
Thanks so
show.
much for having me.
All right. So that's for my guest, Caroline Pineau, and of course, my Canna Bro, David Jazz, and our Canna Mom Show team. I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to the Canna Mom Show. We're on a mission to enhance the impact women have on the emerging cannabis industry by sharing their stories of love, kindness, wisdom, and hope. Thank you for following and sharing the amazing stories of the women building this new industry, so together we can crush that stigma around cannabis and caregivers. I'm your host, Joyce Gerber. This is the Canna Mom Show, and we're a production of Pod 617, the Boston Podcast Network.